to the Milton City Hall at 7:30. I'm going to call the meeting of the Milton Common Council for February 19th, 2019 to order. And the first item on the agenda is the roll call.
Kuhn.
Here.
Burke.
Present.
Teal.
Here.
Present. Olson.
Here.
Ramsey.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Richard.
Here.
All present.
Okay, so the next item is the comments from the citizens present. It's limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Anybody who wants to speak, identify yourself and give your address and come to the microphone. Well, if you signed, did somebody sign a slip? Yeah, go ahead and, it's okay, go ahead and come and speak. Identify yourself, your address, and 3 minutes. Do you want? You have a timer?
I'm gonna see if I can keep track of time myself, but I'm not sure about that. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Niall Austin, so 2023 Park Lawn Place. I spoke last time, so you have that information. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you. I'm here to speak in opposition to the Addison project, the proposed Addison project. You may be wondering why I'm here, but I'm here because although the Common Council lowered the size of the building, it didn't really change the other dimensional aspects of the building. There's a reproposal for 39 units yet, so the same number of units, and the same kind of stress and on the environment. Okay, so what I'm here to, my understanding was by taking a floor off of the 4-story building and reducing it to 3-story, that everything gets kind of sized down proportionally. And what's happened is the development was proposed as basically a neighborhood-friendly type development with a balance of studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. And that balance has been largely upset by the increase in the number of efficiencies by 10 units from the original 6 to 16, and the reduction in the 1-bedroom by 10 from it's now 19 versus 29. So the developer was promoting this apartment development as a neighborhood friendly with longer term residents, and by increasing the number of studio units, that's changed, in my opinion. Okay, so I don't think the developer, at least it's my understanding, that this was a downsize in the project from 4 to 3 stories, and so by doing that, he should only have about 4 studios instead of 16, and we should be talking about 18 1-bedrooms and 3 2-bedrooms. And I would like the Common Council to consider that, stipulating that into the zoning requirements, besides the 3-story limitation, that the proportional limitations be included for the types of units that are included there. In addition, I'd like the zoning to also consider limiting, how am I doing?
Yeah,
One
you
more
have
minute.
about 15 seconds.
Oh, okay. To also consider limiting 2-hour parking, or limiting the units from using parking on Franklin, or at least limit the time that they can use the park on Franklin. And I think there should be more setback to the university. A traffic study was not done the traffic study that was done, I should say, didn't include university, and I think it should be, and for future development, some consideration along that corridor should be allowed for expansion. Sorry, that was a little
Thank
more
you
than
so
10
much.
seconds. Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to speak?
Hello, I'm Greg Neeson from Middleton. I'm not against the building. I think the proposed building, though, is going to create a parking issue for sure. I'm an apartment building, I actually own apartments, and I think with 39 apartment units, you're probably going to have a minimum of 50 cars. So you're going to have a problem finding a spot for those other 10 cars or so. The other issue that I have is the 8-foot setback. I still think it's too close to the road. When those vehicles are exiting that parking lot, I think someday you're probably going to have a serious accident there, and obviously you're going to have to blame the car driver, but if you take from the front of your car to where the driver sits, it's more than 8 feet. So you're going to have to edge out onto the sidewalk. So if some kid's on a bike cruising, obviously there could be a serious accident there. So those are really the only things I have to say.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else who wants to speak?
Hello, my name is Joe Farron. I live at 6912 Franklin Avenue. I'm not opposed to the project as it sits now either. I'd like to thank the council for making the concessions they did and thank Anthony for making the concessions that he did. The only concern I have is parking. 1.1 cars per unit, it works in a book, but it doesn't work in the real world. The real world is not right angles. How many of you remember your first apartment? Your first apartment with your spouse, how many cars did you have? You had 2. If you could make it work, you made it work with 1. But the majority of the people that are going to be in these units are going to have more than 1 vehicle. So there needs to be a little something done with parking. If they don't add more parking on the site, people are going to park across the street at Willie Street and try and cross 4 lanes of traffic. Or they're going to park on Franklin Avenue, which already is becoming busier than it should be. And with 2 lanes of traffic there and kids on the street, it's just going to be a hazard. So I think we need to do something for parking for that unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else who wants to speak? Anyone else who wants to speak? Okay, I'm going to close that part of the meeting, and we are going to beyond 7:32. I'm going to hear the public hearing. The first public hearing is J&M Milton Incorporated doing business as Fusey Sushi and Hibachi is requesting a Class B fermented malt beverage and Class B intoxicating liquor license. They are located at 1610 Deming Way. Anyone else who wants to speak either in favor or against it? Anyone who wants to speak in favor or against it? Okay, if there's no one who wants to speak, I'm going to close this part of the public hearing and move on to the next part, which is item number 2. At Hoops of Dane County Incorporated doing business as the Club Tavern is requesting a Class B fermented malt beverage and Class B intoxicating liquor license. They are located at 1915 Branch Street, and their agent is Dale Beck McFarland. So we all know, and Moose is right back there. So anybody wants to speak either in favor or against it? Anybody who wants to speak either in favor or against it? If there's anyone who wants to speak, I'm going to close that part of the public hearing, and we're going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those who are in favor of the approval of the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Could I move up on, under ordinances, second reading, item 1?
Okay, all right. We are going to move on to the ordinances, item number 1, an ordinance, and this is the second reading.
Second reading.
Okay, ordinance is second reading. This is the rezoning ordinance, second reading, request for rezoning from office district B1 to plan development district general implementation plan.
I'll move approval.
The Addison Ostinger Development, 681468186824 University Avenue.
I'll move approval.
Okay, need a second? Okay. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, the motion is to approve the rezoning, second reading of the rezoning ordinance from Office B1 to Plan Development District General Implementation Plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. All right. We are back to, okay, guys. So, under proclamation, we are honoring Michael Knapstein for profound achievement in the field of photography that bring recognition to Milton. So, you want to stand up, Michael? I actually ran into Michael many, many years ago, and he actually wrote one of the books with his own pictures on the Friends of Kettle Ponds. And so he has, if you were to look at his resume, he has 10 pages of all the national and international awards which I have won. And a lot of those pictures are from Pheasant Branch Conservancy here or from this area. So he brings lots and lots of recognition to our city. So proclamation honoring Michael Knapstein for profound achievements in the field of photography that brings recognition to Milton. Whereas Michael Knapstein is a world-renowned photographer whose talent has been evident since his youth. And whereas Michael used his 30-plus year career in advertising to hone his skills in the use of design, eye movement tracking, semiotics, and storytelling, all of which he now uses in his photography. And whereas upon retiring from advertising in 2010, Michael was able to rededicate himself to his love of photography, and whereas since his rededication to photography, Michael's photographs from the Milton area have won awards and been exhibited in galleries and museums throughout Wisconsin, as well as New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, Carmel, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Portland, and other major cities across the United States. And whereas internationally, Michael's photographs from Middleton have been exhibited in London, Oxford, Belfast, Paris, Arles, Buenos Aires, Barcelona, Malaga, Berlin, Moscow, Tokyo, and Sydney, among others. And whereas Michael was recently honored as the International Landscape Photographer of the Year at the 5th Biennial of the Fine Arts Documentary Photography in Barcelona, Spain. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Gurdeep Barar Mehra, City of Milton, do hereby recognize and honor Michael Knapstein for all his contribution to photography, including his multiple national and international awards that bring heightened recognition to the City of Milton. This proclamation was adopted at a regular meeting of the Milton Common Council on this 19th day of February 2019. Congratulations.
I'll second
Okay.
the motion.
All those in, well, any question or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Take pictures. That's awesome. I'm like, get in the middle. Yeah, scoot this way a little bit.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It'd be ironic if this photograph didn't turn out. That's irony.
Congratulations.
A lot of fun in the city. Thank you. Okay, so the next is agreements. Number one is Wisconsin DNR grant agreements for repairs to Pheasant Branch.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
It doesn't really apply to this body, but I was curious about some of the language that's in, I guess it's the state stuff. I just want to ask for my own knowledge, who can push back on the state to ask them to start changing some of the language in here, like the exception about how people of certain groups are treated?
Okay, Bob.
Just
Just
I
note
noticed
that it was signed in December.
I do know. Oh, like I said, this is. I figured I'd just bring this up while we're on camera. How do we? What's the process to? And maybe there's nothing that we can do as a city, but I see that in every one of these things it says in paragraph number 9 under A7, they always have and except with respect to sexual orientation, the grantee further agrees to take affirmative action, blah, blah, blah. I just find that really backwards. And I guess I'm just noting it for the record, and if there's anything we as a city body can do to kind of push for change at the state level on some of these forms, I would greatly appreciate it.
There may be-
Executive Order 1 took care of that.
Did it?
Yep.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
you.
Thank you.
Wow, that's good, that's good. Yeah, it is, yeah, as you said. Any other question or comments? Okay, all those in favor of this motion to accept these grants close to about $700,000, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So the next one is the budget allocation of $36,000 2018 Access Capital Projects Fund for the purchase of furniture for the IT department at the Milton Police Station.
Move we defer as recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are on to the miscellaneous community campus planning request for proposals.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Direction of fundraising for downtown Milton Plaza, 7550 Hubbard Avenue.
I'll move approval as recommended by finance, which was to defer this until a completion date, target date of fall of 2020.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I'll make a comment, which is just that I think everybody up here is very supportive of this project, and the reason we are making this motion to delay is because it's just too tight of a time frame to have any chance of raising funds for this project, and I think this is the right thing to do to defer for a year. So, thank you.
Would we be able to put like benches in there this year, and maybe once the plans are more finalized, to put that in the plaza also, or the, whatever we're gonna call it, but so that the people know what they can expect coming up?
As long as you don't mind them sitting directly on the grass.
With benches?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instead of on a hard surface.
Oh.
Like they usually are.
Oh, I see.
Actually, can I make a recommendation or a
Suggestion?
a
Amendment.
referral to parks to see if they can do something on an interim basis?
That's a good idea.
Okay. The one who, you agree with this, you want to second it, that's okay? All right, this is much better, and maybe, you know, Abby, you can look at
So
various
there's two
options.
motions here, right? One is to approve the deferral, the other one is to refer to parks.
Yeah.
Oh, so
I'll
you want to
second
vote
this.
those two separately then?
Probably should do it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's vote on the motion to refer it to PRFC. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. And let's vote on the second motion to defer it. So all those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that passes unanimously as well. Number 3, approval of the collateral assignment to State Bank of Cross Plains by Red-Tail Acres.
I'll move approval.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Now we are on to the ordinances. This is the first reading. Final action may be taken upon approval of motion to suspend rules under section 1.07 Milton General Ordinances. An ordinance directing city to receive state of Wisconsin school levy credit, lottery credit, and first dollar credit as authorized by the state law.
I'll move, we suspend the rules to go to final reading.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? It's good to get money from the state anytime. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. An ordinance to amend various provisions relating to the direct sellers.
Move approval is recommended by L&O.
Second.
Any question or comments? What's the intent here, Matt?
This does several things. One thing was just to kind of clear up some inconsistent language we had. For instance, between the definition of transient merchant and permanent merchant, there seemed to be kind of a hole where one might be neither. Also some exemptions that were found in the transient merchant language. The real substantive stuff here was to, one, clean up. We didn't really have anything technically, things like kids selling Girl Scout cookies and fundraisers and things like that would have been covered by the ordinance, so we have a clearer exemption for that. And then also we have clarified an exemption that was sort of, I think, intended in the definition of transient merchant, but because of where it was, it didn't really operate, I think, as intended to have exemptions for sales of arts and crafts, things that are, you know, handmade, that people sell, you know, at locations other than going door to door,
Yeah.
where that wouldn't be subject to the direct sellers ordinance.
But most of the time at the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and the orchestra people from high school.
Well, that stuff would still be
That's
door,
still
that
there.
would be different, yeah, that's a
This is
different
for
exemption, but
arts
for
and
the arts and
crafts
crafts stuff.
Yeah,
Like Good Neighbor Fest.
Exactly, yeah, for, yeah, certain special events and stuff where that kind of thing happens, and I think the intent was to have that exempt, we just realized
Yeah.
that the way it was structured, it didn't technically do, I think, what was intended, so.
We just cleaned it up.
Thank you for that.
So Susan mentioned Good
Summary.
Neighbor Fest. That means those art and craft people selling at the Good Neighbor Fest, now they're exempt?
Right.
And
I
then
should
they-
also point out, the other thing that this does is we had a fingerprinting requirement, and that was frankly creating a much bigger hassle than it was
Not
worth.
the Boy Scouts.
Well, not for the Boy Scouts, just in general, so we're eliminating general fingerprinting requirement for obtaining the direct sellers ordinance. We still require photo ID, and there is still a catch-all that if, for whatever reason, they're not able to produce sufficient other ID, that the police department can ask for any other reasonable form of identification. So if it should happen that we needed to go that far, the police department still has the ability to identify somebody by fingerprint, but it's no longer, as a matter of course, gonna be necessary.
Okay, any other questions, either to Matt or any other concerns? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So now we are on to last item, the resolution. Declaring intent to assess cost improvements for University Avenue.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
And need a, hard to believe, motion to adjourn.
Quicker than last.
Okay, we are adjourned. I thought it was gonna be